Zach is back. It's the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
All right, welcome back in. 5:16 on this Friday. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. 609-919-9200 is the telephone number. John Sterling joined us in the 4 p.m. hour, and now joining us to kick off the 5 p.m. hour is a four-time World Series champion with the New York Yankees. That, of course, is Jeff Nelson, now doing some phenomenal work with Fox Sports down in Florida with the Miami Marlins for pre and post, and also does some stuff with TuneIn. And, of course, Derek Jeter is going to Monument Park this weekend, going to have his number 2 retired, so we figure we bring on Jeff Nelson. He's always great with us. Jeff, we appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for the time, and how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on, and we do appreciate it. So when you go to these events, and I know that you haven't, you've been retired since 2006, but you're not ancient yet, and Derek Jeter has only been gone from the game since 2014. What are those like? Can you just imagine that, hey, you're finally at these events where you see one of your players get his number retired?
Well, making me feel ancient. I mean, that's for sure. But you see, last year was at Bernie Williams. You have O'Neill, you have Tino Martinez, Willie Randolph. I mean, on and on. It brings back the times that I just feel lucky playing and being teammates with those guys and doing what we did as far as those years in the '90s. I mean, that's just incredible. And I get to New York quite a bit. I do a lot of stuff with the Yankees, and as much as I can get into the city, I do. My wife and I, and it's just. Just to see fans that come up to you and talk about those days, and then you get to go on Sunday, and this might be the last number that ever gets retired by the Yankees is number 2.
It's unbelievable as Jeff Nelson's with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Hey, Jeff, let me take you back to when you got traded to New York in 1996, and you had a lot of success winning 4 World Series. And, out of your 6 years in New York, you went to 5 World Series. So it's unbelievable stuff. But when you first got that call that you were getting traded to New York, what do you remember about that?
Well, it's funny because, most teams, and I don't know if the Yankees ever did it or not, but they do these caravans where they go, and out in Seattle, our market was so large, you go into different states. You go into Oregon, Canada, Idaho, and also Alaska. And I was actually in Alaska doing a Mariner caravan when I got traded off the caravan, and I had one more day to do the caravan, so I did that as a Yankee. So I was a little surprised because '95 is the first division series when we played the Yankees and had that phenomenal series that went 5 games. We thought, Tino and I, we've been playing together since the minor league days every single year all the way up till 2001. We were like, okay, we're coming back, and we're going to try to even go further in the playoffs as a Mariner. But you know what? We get traded to New York, and what better place to get traded to than as a Yankee?
I never thought really I'd be interviewing someone, and I find out that where did they find out they were getting traded of all places? It's Alaska. Really interesting stuff.
Exactly.
What did you do from there? Did you go right to New York? Did you fly from Alaska to New York, or did you go back home, get all your stuff? Like, when that happens, how do you move your life that quickly?
Well, the thing of it is that we still, I'm from Baltimore, but I and playing in Seattle, we stayed. I stayed out there, and even when I was playing in New York, I just kept going back. I mean, I had my kids out there. I have one New Yorker. One of my children were born in New York during the summer. My third one, and she actually graduated high school this year. So now I'm even more ancient. I guess you were, never disappointed because I grew up as an Oriole fan, so I didn't like the Yankees too well, and I all through the minor leagues, I never liked the Yankees too well, probably because they won all the time. But but once you get traded to them, you're disappointed in leaving in an organization I grew up in Seattle and getting to the major leagues for the first time with the Mariners, and then all of a sudden you go to an iconic organization like the Yankees. You're like, well, I guess if I have to be traded somewhere, you might as well be traded to probably the best sports franchise in all the sports.
And you guys got to add on to the history book and the resume of the Yankees organization. And Jeter got called up for a little bit in '95 for 15 games, but you really got to see him, and he won Rookie of the Year in 1996. And when you're seeing him play, your first year in New York, and you're seeing Derek Jeter's first year, and eventually you see what he has become. But did you know that he would be really good during that 1996 season? Like, what was that first memory that you said, hey, this guy, he's something really special?
Well, I guess you go on into the season because spring training is so funny that, pitchers kind of stay together, and then you have the regulars never really become a team until about the last 10 days of spring. and Joe Torre wanted him as a shortstop. You get to play because Mr. Steinbrenner, got all kinds of players, and you get to play with so many great players in New York. I guess it was about maybe 2-3 months into the season. He was a rookie, but never acted that way. And every time when you'd say, clutch hitter, but whenever we had a big hit or needed a big hit, Derek Jeter always seemed to come up in the right spot and get that hit. And I was just amazed that this young kid coming up and playing in the largest city and with all kinds of microscope and eyes on the Yankees and him and Derek Jeter coming up every single time and feeling like he's been there for 10 years. It was amazing to watch him and the knowledge that he had as far as a young kid playing that game and being in 96, and just it was amazing to watch him because you're playing with tons of superstars as a Yankee. Bernie Williams and Paul O'Neill, Tino. We had Tim Raines, Darryl Strawberry, you have Pettit. I mean, you can go on, and then you have Derek Jeter. And it's, look what he's become. But it all started in 96, and I think everybody could see it. Everybody could see what kind of student of the game and what kind of player this guy was going to be.
Jeff Nelson with us, and on a 25-man roster, not all the times you're going to get 1 through 25 always liking each other and agreeing on every single thing, but it seems like those Yankee teams, they were very tight, and it also helps when you're winning. But what was your relationship like as a teammate of Derek Jeter? What was that relationship like?
He was great, and like you mentioned, we had those type of years because the media level. You had Mr. Steinbrenner that wanted to win all the time. You had the fans that were so passionate about the Yankees. They haven't won for years, and all of a sudden we win in 96. Everybody was a tight-knit group. All 25 guys were a tight-knit group. Yeah, you might not be hanging out on the road all the time, but we had like 15 or 18 guys that would actually hang out on the road when we leave New York and go to different cities. I had a great relationship with him. We would always did one of these things. Baseball's full of superstitions or whatever you call them. I always used to get heat on my arm, and I always would throw the dirty towel in his locker, and he'd always, it always became like a little thing that always did. But he was, I don't think anybody could not like or get along with Derek Jeter. I mean, he was just an amazing guy. Even now, I see him all the time, and when you do see him, it's like you never lost anything. He's an amazing person. His parents did an amazing job. His mom and dad are two of the most down-to-earth people you'd ever want to meet. His sister as well. So they're just a great family. You can see. I mean, look what they've raised. I mean, look what Derek playing a single guy, not now, but a single guy in the largest city. And you know what? He stayed the straight and narrow and became a superstar.
When you look back at his on-field career and the time that you got to see him in New York, in the 6 years that you spent with New York, what was your favorite on-field memory of one Derek Jeter?
Ooh, well, I mean, you could say, when
it's a laundry list of them.
Mayer. Yeah, I know. You can say the Jeffrey Mayer home run. I mean, the 96 that he hit. Just the way he plays shortstop. It's funny. He, as a young player, you talk about 96. I think everybody, you always try to follow an example, and you always try to follow each other. And everybody had the same objective when you were a Yankee, and that was to win. But once you stepped in between the lines, I don't think anybody wanted to win more than Derek. And I think it carried over to the rest of the team, and it even carried over as a young kid, as a rookie. I think it just bled into everybody else. Everybody felt his passion and his desire to win every single day. And I think everybody, we're going to do the same thing. I mean, look how hard this kid's playing, and he's a rookie. You don't want, as a veteran guy or experienced guy, you don't want to be shown up by a rookie. You got to, try to do twice as much as he does. But I don't know if there is a favorite. This guy, we went over like some of the top 16 things that he's ever done. I mean, there's many more than that. You have the little flip that he did in Oakland. You're diving into the stands. The Timon Perez, when he got a bad start in 2000, they threw him out at home. I don't know if there is one. Just watching this guy play shortstop every day. And then later in his career, maybe some of the criticism that he was getting as far as, he's slowing down, you should drop him in the order. And he still goes out and does it. I mean, this guy is just an amazing athlete. And, for me, maybe one of my favorite things is just you look at the record books, and he'll start reflecting now that he's done. But the all-time hits leader as a Yankee, and you're talking about, Joe DiMaggio, Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth, Yogi Berra. I mean, names like that, and he's at the top. I mean, that's just amazing.
Jeff Nelson with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show talking about Derek Jeter. Like I was saying earlier, 6 years in New York, you went to 5 World Series, you won 4, and then you also lost 1 playoff series to, I believe, the Indians it was.
Right.
With all those memories, and when you get back now, like we're just reflecting on those memories, and you see those teammates, and you've had these events before, like what do the guys talk about when you see a Mariano or if you see a Bernie Williams at one of these events? Like what's the conversation like amongst those teammates of yours?
Well, I think you can take a step back and you say, wow, look what kind of team we had. But mainly, a lot of it is, okay, what are we doing now? Hey, it's great to see you. We had such, like I mentioned, we had such a close-knit group that everybody got along, and we all had the same objective. We never got complacent. We always wanted to keep winning. No matter if we won 1 World Series, we wanted to do it the next year. But I think, 96, we just had our reunion last year in the summertime. I think when everybody got called out into the field, or even when we were in the tunnel out there in left center field, and you look at the names that we had, I think that's like, you kind of forget. You're like, wow. I said, look at this team that we had. Look at the guys that we had on this team. It's just, and then next year will be the 98 reunion and all that. The superstars that we had at each position, I think that's mind-blowing, and you don't even think about it until we had that little reunion in the summertime last year.
Yeah, I always look at it, if the core 4 always gets all the credit, but some people, they don't forget about it in New York, but you talk about the amount of superstars you had on that team, like Bernie Williams is not in the core 4, and look how great of a career that he had,
right.
Jeff.
Right, exactly. I played against him in the minor leagues, and you could see that he was going to be some kind of player. And then even playing against him when I was my first few years in Seattle, he was an incredible athlete. And watch him in center field, watch him hit, going about his business. The thing of it is in New York, the media level and the fans and the expectations are so high, higher. I mean, maybe not as much now, but back then it was even higher. It's tough to play, but you could see everybody had the same objective. And Bernie was one of those even-keel guys. He never let anything bother him. And, you had Tino, you had Dale Strawberry, and Tim Raines is going into the Hall of Fame this year. Bernie Williams, you had Mariano Duncan, Jeter. It's just, you had Cecil Fielder came over. You had Cone, you had Pettit, Jimmy Key was there. I mean, it just goes on, and it was, it's an incredible team. And then you go and you talk about the 98 team for next year. It's just, I think we see each other, and everybody knows that we had a special time, and maybe another team will never see that again. Everybody talks about the Cubs. Oh, they're going to get back to the World Series. Well, they're not getting off to a great start, but the times that we had those 3 in a row, and I don't know if that'll ever happen.
Wrapping up with Jeff Nelson right now on the Zach Gelb Show. So now you do a lot of good work with the Marlins as their Fox Sports pre- and post-hosts. Let me just ask you this, because everyone now speculates with Jeter possibly owning the Marlins, and you probably have a lot of good sources on this one. What's the inside scoop on Derek Jeter, the potential owner?
I think it would be great. I don't know if I have any kind of inside scoop, because I think Rob Manfred kind of shot that down when they said there was like 2 other groups besides Jeter's and Bush's group coming in that were bidding on the team. They were kind of hoping that they were going to get it done soon and finally pick someone, whoever that was going to be, way before. I think whoever's going to own this team is going to wind up owning it way before the All-Star game. They want to try to wrap this thing up. I heard sometime in May, possibly early June. But I think having Derek Jeter in this community, you have a lot of Yankee fans, a lot of New York following, and transplants, and even people that come down in the wintertime in the Miami and South Florida area that I think would be terrific. He would take over the baseball operations, and I think the Marlins have a great, good young core. They just maybe need some, right direction or right mind as far as Derek. I think he'd be a terrific owner, and what he would do with any team would be helpful.
Would you want to be the pitching coach?
I would lobby on the pitching coach now. I've seen these guys all the time, and they just seem like they don't make any kind of adjustment. But, I like what I do. I think coaching is really demanding now as far as it's worse than being a player. I mean, you're there before the guys get there and after the guys get there. So I like what I do. I like the media side. I like describing baseball to fans and getting excited. And I, sometimes throw a little humor in there every now and then, but I like what I do. And if I can stay in Miami and stay stay with the Marlins, that would be awesome. Other than if I had a chance with New York, then the Yankees would be my first choice, obviously.
Have you shot Jeter a text about this? Have you picked up the phone and called him just with all the reports that are out there? I know Manfred shot it down a little bit, but this thing is still a possibility. Have you been in contact about him with this?
Oh, I've had some friends contact him for me, and I throw a little bug in his ear every now and then. So, this is something that's going to take a little time, and hopefully in the next month or so, they'll have an answer, and maybe and that would be great. And Miami would be lucky to have this guy as an owner.
Hey, Jeff, we all know that the owner that you guys had to deal with the great late George Steinbrenner. Just take me what it was like to be a player in a clubhouse that was owned by one George Steinbrenner.
Well, Mr. Steinbrenner was the most passionate owner that I probably will ever experience in baseball. He wanted to win, the desire to win. He always got the best players that he could to try to get a winner for the city. He did it for the city. He was a guy that was so demanding. He would come in. The only time he was ever in the locker room was when we played, or up in New York, was when we played the Red Sox, the Mets, and if there was a special occasion. Most of the time he was in Tampa. So when we played the Rays, he was always there, and he was also there in spring training all the time. But he would test guys. He would come in, and you would have to be – to play in New York back then, you had to be mentally strong, and you had to take a lot of things as far as the media. The fans expected 100% out of you all the time. And some guys couldn't handle it. Some guys couldn't take the toughness. I mean, look at Randy Johnson. Randy Johnson's a Hall of Famer. When he got traded over to New York, he came to me and said, Nelly, I don't know how you played in the city. But I loved it. I loved the fact that everybody demanded the best out of you, and I demanded the best out of myself. And Mr. Steinbrenner did the same thing. And he would test players. He would come up, and if you had a couple bad games in a row, he might jump all over you. But, I mean, you never really got it. You never really – I guess you would take up for yourself in a way that you wanted to show confidence that you know what, don't worry about it. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do the job the next time. And then he would know that, this guy's going to have success in New York. And some guys crawled under a rock. Kenny Rogers is a perfect example. He didn't do very well in New York, and Mr. Steinbrenner would question him a lot personally. And I think he felt the pressure of Mr. Steinbrenner. But you know what? He expected the best. And sometimes the guys just couldn't handle playing in that city, and I think the fans pretty much knows who didn't do well and who did do well.
Hey, Jeff, before we let you run, this is the hard-hitting analysis that I need you to do for me right now, because you do a great job on the Marlins broadcast before and after the game. How about the fan the other night that was showing her cleavage to the Cardinals starting pitcher?
Oh my God! You know what? I see those girls all the time because and there's like 4 or 5 of them right behind, and it's that guy that
the Marlins man,
the Marlins guy who's everywhere, and he sits right behind him, and I'm like, and sometimes they wear a little bit more, prerogative outfits, and I just saw that on Facebook. I'm like, oh my God. And now she's famous. It's gonna be, who knows? Who was the one? Jen Sturger or something.
Yes.
She'd be another one of those. Oh, God.
I'll tell you this, though. I was reading a quote today in the Post, and this is what it said. 2 Marlins players, this is Marlins man speaking. He said, 2 Marlins players wrote me and said, hey, tell your girls to stop jumping up and down when we're in the field. It's distracting to us, but it's okay if we're batting to distract the other pitcher. Like, if you're on the mound there, Jeff, and you just see these hooters pop out of nowhere, like you're throwing the pitch outside, right?
Oh, I might be hitting the bull in the Bull Durham.
Hey, Jeff, we appreciate it. Enjoy this weekend. Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks a lot. Take care, guys.
There's Jeff Nelson joining us on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. So, Marlins man, we talked about this yesterday, and Marlins man wasn't in the video. It was this bald guy, and I'm saying, oh, that bald guy, he's lucky he's probably going home with the girls and having some fun. Well, that bald guy, we actually know who that is. That's a talk show host in Florida, and Andy Slater. At first, I said, that looks a little bit like Andy. What is he doing with 3 smoking hot chicks? And then I'm thinking when I'm seeing this, that's right where Marlins man usually sits. But if you haven't heard the story, Marlins man went to the game with 3 smoking hot chicks. And one of the girls, she had enormous breasts. And she lowered her shirt while the Cardinals pitcher was throwing the ball. And it was all over television. Here is some of the story from the New York Post, because Marlins man, his real name is Lawrence Levy. Here was his explanation what happened. Lawrence Levy says, I didn't know what happened. When I came back, people were like, did you hear what happened? The Marlins then sent me a text message saying, you need to keep your girls under control. They cannot be flashing on TV. It's not appropriate. Bringing them is one thing to have fun, but the actions aren't a good image, and we cannot condone it. Absolutely love it. Then this girl who was showing her breasts to the entire world, or whoever's watching a Marlins game, I think her name is Corinna, and she said, to be honest, I was caught off guard, she told the New York Post. I was sitting and watching the game, and we had a couple guys on base, and we were just kind of talking and laughing, and we thought it would be kind of funny and a distraction to get the pitcher's attention and see if it would help. So that's kind of what we did, but we didn't think we were on camera. Like, come on, does anyone believe that? You didn't think you were on camera? You're showing your breasts to the pitcher, and you're lowering your shirt so your entire cleavage is being shown, and you didn't think you were on camera? You're right behind the plate, for crying out loud. You're in the first or second row. You show those Hooters, everyone's going to see them, especially in this age of social media. And then I got into that quote that Marlins fan said, that the two players, they wrote him and said, hey, tell the girls to stop jumping up and down when we're in the field. It's distracting to us, but it's okay if we're batting to distract the other pitcher. Imagine, you have Giancarlo Stanton in right field, and he goes, hey, guys, get me the binoculars. Oh, I don't need binoculars for those. Oh, you know what? Timeout. I'm taking a timeout. Let me walk over. Hey, what's your number? What you doing after the game? Do you want to go to Joe Stonecrab's? You want to come on my yacht or something? Like, seriously. Oh, geez. So that was funny, though. I had to ask Jeff about that. I was positioning it to put it at the end of the interview because I didn't know how he would handle it, but he took it very well. But it's going to be a fun evening coming up on Sunday, Mother's Day, of course. Derek Jeter going to be honored at Monument Park, get the number 2 retired, and it's going to be a big, fun ceremony and all that stuff. 609-9199-D200. The Zach Gelb Show. You get talk of baseball, and you also get talk about boobs. That's how we'll start marketing ourselves, because I'll tell you, that video, it was absolutely hysterical. One of the ultimate distractions that you're ever going to see. And you've seen this before in sports. You've seen like Michael Phelps pop out of nowhere. He was dressed. Don't worry. He had his gold medals on. It covered up every part of his body. But you've seen that before. You've seen before like people yell things out to the players and all that. You know, that guy in Philadelphia, like I was talking about the other day, that has like, he's enormous, a big dude. And he sits at the games with this cannon. He gets up and he rips off his shirt to distract the free throw shooter. But if you really want to get to a guy, well, just have a smoking hot chick sit behind the plate and lower her shirt. Yeah, his jaw will drop and he'll probably throw the pitch a little bit outside. 609-9199-D200. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, the Jersey. 5:39 is the time, the Princeton Orthopedic Associates Studios. We'll take a break. We'll calm down. We'll get all settled when we come back. It's the home stretch coming up next on the Zach Gelb Show.